William Hill sponsors Seconds Out.
What do we know, eh?
Hey, what do we know? We might as well just start the interview there.
What do we know? Rahim, we're meant to be the experts, aren't we? And what do we know? You never know in this sport.
And that's why even the experts turn up on fight night just to find out what we really know. And tonight is one of those nights that not just shocked the world, but ended up shocking the world on what was a fantastic fight card. That can't be lost either.
Yeah.
All of these matchups were wildly entertaining. The fight night here was something of historic proportion. And I'll start with the fairly easier of the two major fights as I saw it tonight, which was Katie Taylor and Prasoon, which I would say fairly easier, but not entirely without dispute. Sitting ringside, how did you have that fight when the final bell rung?
I thought Delphine Bassoon won the fight. Matt Macklin thought she won the fight. Paulie Malignaggi thought she won the fight. Every single person on the next row to us, Carl Frampton, I think had it a long way. David Hay, I mean, everyone I spoke to, I think, had Delphine Bassoon either winning. I think Andy Clark scored it a draw. Look, it was a great fight, and it was a fantastic finish, and it was great to see everyone on their feet, and it was a great advert for women's boxing. I just think Katie she was a bit caught betwixt and between tonight. She didn't let her class, which she could have done, take over, but you got to give Delphine Bassoon so much credit. She was on top of her, she didn't let her breathe, and she told us all week that it's not a 3-round fight, it's a 10-round fight, and she just seemed to be a slightly more hardened professional. Katie's been amazing so far in her 2.5 years. I think she was a little bit shocked by the physical strength of Prasoon, who came in really light. And I just think she drove herself, a little bit like Ray Robinson against Josh Kelly. Just there was something in them tonight, the underdogs, that just, and Andy Ruiz obviously, but that just drove them to proving something. Maybe it's the garden, maybe it's the stage, maybe it's the fact that, you're the underdog and you're sort of written off, or you're not expected to win. But I think there was a lot of that tonight. I think Katie was lucky to get the decision. I take nothing away from the fact that she's been an amazing professional, unbelievable amateur, and that she, in many ways deserves to be called the best lightweight. But I didn't think she won tonight, and I think that it was, how close it was. Some of the rounds were tight, and they were very competitive, but that was my feeling. I felt when Delphine Bassoon walked out the ring in tears. I really felt for her. I don't know what you felt, but
Yeah, I felt for her as well, and it was a split emotion because I felt adulation and congratulations for Katie Taylor.
Yeah.
She doesn't write the scorecard. She did what she could do. But the interesting thing is, having been on both ponds,
how did you have it?
and understanding, I had a draw.
Yeah.
But understanding the culture of both sides of these ponds, I thought maybe that we talk a lot about, the hallowed ground of Madison Square Garden, but didn't give enough credit to what that moment really meant to all the fighters.
Absolutely.
And this felt like it was supposed to be a coronation night. Joshua was supposed to come here and be king of New York, and his debut in America was something of a foregone conclusion. And Katie Taylor, much the same, the way Hearn was promoting it. And this woman had 44 fights, has been undefeated for 9 years. We just kind of assumed these things, Josh Kelly, would go on as they'd been going on. Those guys stepped up. Do you think that maybe the moment maybe was bigger for the favorites than it was for the challengers, and that could have been the difference?
Yeah, possibly. And also, maybe they felt that they were going to have slightly easier fights than they did. I don't think Katie's like that. I think Katie absolutely, and obviously she's Irish, not British, but she absolutely, is dedicated to each and every challenge. I think she believed that Delphine Bassoon was the best fighter she'd been in with. She said after she believed she won. I'll have a look back at the tape, and you scored it a draw, but my feeling was, that she had her moments, Katie, but that Delphine Bassoon deserved it over the course of the fight. Look, I think she wouldn't have underestimated anybody, but maybe Josh Kelly felt it'd be slightly easier than it was. Joshua Buatsi, while great getting the job done, was a little bit over-eager as well. Tommy Coyle, obviously, as tough as old boots and a huge heart, but I think Jamie Moore pulled him out at the right time. Anthony's, horror night or toughest night or however you want to look at it, hard night for the Brits, and the pressure of the garden, maybe the pressure of the favoritism, all of that sort of stuff is, in the pot. But ultimately, it's. I think you've got to take your hat off to the underdogs, or the ones that that drove it out of themselves and produced their performance. Ray Robinson's performance, he got the draw. Many people thought he won that fight, and that was a great effort all the way through. And I thought Delphine Bassoon's effort all the way through was great. They may not have been the classier fighters, but they were certainly so determined to prove something. And of course, Andy Ruiz the most in the big one. He wanted it, he believed in himself, and he shocked everybody. Everybody in this room, he said, no one thought I'd win it.
And before we get to the main event, it was shocking that Katie Taylor wasn't listening to her corner, and that she seemed to go in there with a lot less discipline than we're used to seeing her. What do you accredit that to? Why do you think we saw such a different Taylor than we were used to seeing?
I think Katie, as I said about this betwixt and between, I think sometimes she decides to get involved when she doesn't really need to. And I think tonight, Delphine Bassoon dragged her into a fight. And I think that what we've loved about Katie is her ability to box and to move. And there were moments, 2 or 3 rounds, she boxed really well. I think it was the 6th. She had a really good round. And, she was moving nicely, and she was utilising that jab and the countering shots. And I think what we love about Katie is that she can box on the outside, but then she loves a bit of a struggle and a tear up on the inside. And I think there's probably just too much of that tonight, that she was dragged into Delphine Bassoon's game and didn't get out of it enough times. So, listen, I don't know. You'll have to talk to her about it and why maybe she wasn't quite as light on her feet as she normally is. And maybe she wanted to do it the hard way. She seems to go in there and sometimes want to excite for the fans, and maybe she just needs to try and take a simpler method tonight. And I think that possibly that would have worked better. And I think in a rematch, I think she'd probably outclass Delphine Bassoon next time. But I think on tonight's, I think she deserves a rematch, Bassoon, as well. But I think on tonight's evidence, although she got the decision, I think that she was out-hustled a lot.
Well, if I could put my promoter's hat on, maybe we could just have another night of all these exact same fights as rematches.
Yeah, why not? That's what, when Lennox Lewis got knocked out by Oliver McCall, it took 2.5 years to get them back in the ring together, whereas when he got knocked out by Hasim Ratman, they got straight back in. We'd love to see all this again. Yeah, absolutely. Why didn't you do, AJ and Andy Ruiz in Cardiff in November with Katie Taylor on the card against Delphine Bassoon and do it all again?
Robinson and...
everyone would be fascinated, because you wouldn't know what the results were going to be, whether they're going to be more of the same, or it was an intriguing night, wasn't it?
It's a pleasure to have you over, and I can't wait to maybe do this again, this entire card over on your side of the pond.
Every one of them.
Every one of them. Radio Rahim with Adam Smith.
William Hill sponsors Seconds Out.